the first thing that we will try to understand is what is the connection between assessment and evaluation. Well, assessment is more holistic in nature. That is, this is a much bigger concept and it can include evaluation. Evaluation is just measurement. That is, you are measuring the learning of a child. Whereas assessment includes the measurement of learning and also the corrective action that you are going to take on the basis of what you learn because of this measurement. For example, if your evaluation, that is your measurement, shows that there are some gaps in the learning or in the understanding of a child in your classroom, then you are going to look at the reasons behind that gaps. You are going to see whether the issue is with the child or the issue is with the teaching process, and you are going to take some corrective action on the basis of the information that you got from measurement. Therefore, assessment includes measurement and the action that you are going to take on the basis of that measurement. Next, let us do a quick comparison between assessment and evaluation on the basis of some of the important points. Let's see what are the key differences between these two. Now, assessment is formative in nature because through assessment you are trying to form the knowledge of the child, right? Because assessment can be for learning as well, right? Therefore, through assessment you are trying to form the knowledge of the child, whereas in evaluation you are just trying to summarize. You are trying to look at what the child has learnt, right? You are not trying to improve the child's knowledge here. And assessment can be diagnostic in nature because it can tell you the improvement areas of the child, the improvement areas of the teacher, and the improvement areas in the teaching and learning process itself. Whereas evaluation is judgmental because at the end of an evaluation, for example, at the end of a weekly test or a monthly test or an annual exam, you will arrive at a score, right? So you are trying to judge this student is good, this student is not good, right? Therefore, you are trying to arrive at a score. Therefore, it is judgmental in nature. And assessment is qualitative because here you are not just looking at a score. You are not just looking at the what. You are also looking at the how or the why. Right? Therefore, assessment is qualitative, whereas evaluation is quantitative because end of the evaluation you will arrive at a specific number. You will arrive at a percentage or a rank. Therefore, evaluation is quantitative. Now, assessment is process oriented. That is, you are trying to make sure that the child understands the basics properly. So, if the child is doing division, you are interested in making sure that the child is following the correct process of division. If the child makes some small error, some small multiplication error or a small calculation error, right? That's why he could not come to the correct answer. That is okay because you are looking at the process. Does the child understand the basics of what division is all about? Right? Whereas in evaluation, you are looking at the outcome. You are not interested in what process the child has used. You are just looking at whether the child has arrived at the correct answer, yes or no. Right? And assessment can be ongoing. That is, assessment is part of the teaching and learning process and it goes on throughout the year, whereas evaluation is periodic. Think about weekly tests or monthly tests or annual tests, so it is periodic in nature. Right? Assessment provides feedback. Like I mentioned earlier, because assessment is diagnostic in nature and it provides improvement areas or tells you about the improvement opportunities, it provides feedback. Whereas evaluation just shows the completion and the shortfalls. That is, whether these chapters have been completed, yes, no, whether the child has knowledge enough to solve problems in that chapter, yes, no. So it is showing just the completion and it is showing the shortfalls. Right? It is not providing that much of a feedback. Then assessment tests how the learning is going on because it is part of the teaching and learning process on an ongoing basis, right? So it is included in the teaching and learning process, whereas evaluation tells you what has been learned. So this is mostly post-mortem, right? This is telling you at the end of the year what the child has learned. Yes, no, that's it. And assessment happens during the learning process. As I said, it is trying to see how the teaching and learning is going on. Whereas evaluation happens at the end of the learning process. That is the weekly test or the monthly test or the annual test, right? So at the end of a particular period. And in assessments, students can learn from each other, right? Whereas in evaluation, students are competing with each other because in an evaluation, like a monthly test or an annual test, all the students are competing for a rank or a percentage, right? Therefore, there is competition. The students are not learning from each other. And in assessment, it is absolute comparison. That is, you are looking at the student as an individual. You are not comparing the student to anybody else. Whereas in evaluation, you are comparing the student to other students in the same class. That's what the ranking process is all about, right? Therefore, these are the key differences between assessment and evaluation. You can pause the video here and read all the points once more. And if you want, you can rewind this and listen to all the explanation once more so that you understand the basic differences between assessment and evaluation. To understand assessment and evaluation much better, let's look at some examples, right? Assessment can be done through class discussions as well, where you give a topic and students are discussing something within the class. So you can see whether the children have the knowledge of that particular topic, how they interact with each other, how they cooperate with each other, how they control their emotions. So you can assess a lot of things through these discussions in the classroom, right? And assessment can also be done by calling students to explain something on the board. This again tells you whether students have the knowledge on the topic, what is their confidence level, whether they are able to explain their point of view. So you can assess a lot of things through this process of calling them to explain something on the board as well. Or assessment can be done through a presentation or a project, how well they present the information, how well they explain the concepts, right? And through projects, you can also see how well they cooperate with each other. Assessment can be done through peer assessment. That is, you can ask the children to assess each other. So you will get to know what other children feel about a particular child or what kind of interaction they have, right? So peer assessment is also a part of the assessment process. And hands-on experiments. It is whether the children have just memorized something or do they really know how to do it. So you can judge that or test that through hands-on experiments. Now let's look at evaluation. Evaluation is very simple, right? You are looking at things like weekly test, monthly test, quarterly test, midterm exam, final exam. So what was the traditional way of testing students, right? Through all these various tests at different intervals. So this is evaluation, whereas the current process is assessment, which happens throughout the year through not just tests, but all these other activities such as discussions or explanations, projects, experiments. So these are the examples of assessment and evaluation.